morning, everyone. I'll stick this right here. In a lot of ways, it's really great being back at the Alleviating Poverty Through Entrepreneurship Summit. As I was preparing for all of these comments, I kept thinking to myself, though, wouldn't it be cool if I got invited back because there was going to be some epic celebration because we had alleviated poverty through entrepreneurship? We could, I don't know, we could spend the day eating chocolate-covered Oreos from FreshBox Catering and cheersing each other in like BPA-free, ethically sourced mugs from Cambodia or something. But it's just not that easy. Poverty isn't that easy to conquer. It's definitely not that easy to conquer through entrepreneurship. And it's because poverty is really tough and messy. And we have to find more effective ways to deal with it. And so today, I want to spend some time unraveling poverty a little bit. And then I want to talk more progressively about some of the solutions we're working on to conquer them. And so first, a little bit of a disclosure. I am not an expert in poverty. And the reason I'm not an expert is that I've never lived in poverty. And I've never had to get out of poverty, more importantly. And so the most effective people we can listen to as experts are people that are making that climb out. And so if you haven't been able to have those conversations, I really encourage you to do so. And so prior to making kind of a commitment to go off and go forward and save the world, talk to some people that are really trying to save themselves. And so a while back, I don't know, sometime in the 90s, people started talking about poverty as a cycle. It's not a very clean cycle. And the idea is that there's all of these issues that we all spend a lot of resources managing. The idea of poverty is that there's an absence of resources to manage these circumstances and situations. And so just as soon as you start getting ahead in one of these categories, say you land an employment opportunity, something will fall through with your transportation or your child care, or maybe you have to become a care provider for somebody in your family. And so with limited resources, you're constantly derailed off that track. Now imagine you spend a lifetime getting defeated like that. It becomes cultural, and you become used to it. And how bad does it suck to not be able to get ahead? And so what's crazy is we've created an entire industry around sustaining quality of life while people are in this cycle of poverty. And that's the tricky thing, is we're talking about sustaining quality of life during the poverty cycle, not in process of breaking the poverty cycle or changing the game. And so when you think of a lot of these things, many are really compassionate and really helpful. But oftentimes, they don't provide the right incentive for somebody to move forward and get out of poverty. And so if you've spent all of this up and down and all of these times where you continue to get defeated, it's really nice to fall back on something. And we have a social service system in place for that. But we have to find ways to move this forward. And so that sustaining opportunity that we've been doing for so long is really, really expensive. We've pulled a whole bunch of numbers from combinations of the Department of Labor to CNN Money, all across the board, to come up with these lists. And in Ohio alone, and we are talking about domestic poverty issues today, or at least I am, plenty of people will not be, but we've spent over $3 billion in 2010, these statistics are from 2010, on these kinds of services. Nationally, it's over $600 billion. And at the end of the day, things are not getting better. In 2010, when these statistics were out, the New York Times reported that poverty was at a 15-year high, at I think over 14%. And so we have to rethink the way that we deliver resources and support people. And so, no mas to this. That was my international flavor for the day. And so, it's a resource game when we're thinking about poverty. But I think we can change the mechanism to deliver on that promise and the way we support people. And the system I think we can do that through is about accountability and about dignity. Because if you're given something all the time, at some point, you start taking a lot of ownership in having it. And so dignity is about giving people an opportunity to earn resources themselves. And accountability is about providing the consistent leadership and support so that people can really use those resources to the best of their ability. The best place to do these things, I believe, is in employment. As an employer, you have a lot of leverage over folks. Whether it's contractually because they're obligated to fulfill a job, but it's also you have obligations to them about the sources you provide them. So what I'm talking about is kind of amplified human resources. And what's interesting now is there's a market for this. And employers, everybody kind of hears about the employment crisis and the labor crisis that's happening. And I think generally we perceive the employment crisis as a lack of available jobs, that there are an absence of jobs in the marketplace. If you talk to many employers or read any number of the big publications, what it is a lack of available people to fill those jobs. And it's skilled jobs sometimes, but also just sheer entry-level jobs. That the skills necessary are employment skill and a willingness and eagerness to just be successful. And so I think we're at a turning point right now where we can start leveraging employers to offer us the job opportunities we need and the type of supportive services employees need to be successful. And so I'm not the first person to think of this. There's a really great group that just came to Columbus called Clean Turn, which is a commercial property services company. The management team came from a Chicago-based organization where they did the same thing, and on an annual basis provided 200 unique jobs to people that were climbing out of poverty successfully and sustainably. No funding, no subsidy, it was sheer market that they provided excellent customer service. We were able to do that. Another great one, and there's some speakers from this area, is Cascade Engineering, which is up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Cascade Engineering is a manufacturer. And they realized a long time ago that they were having issues, HR issues and HR pain associated with a lot of their labor and their workforce that were coming in from these communities into these entry-level jobs. And so they in-housed a social work team and provided a different level of services to people. And after a lot of trial and error, in their first successful 5 years, they saved the company almost $500,000 return on investment in HR costs. They've saved the government in that same period almost $1 million in money that's not going out for public assistance. So substantial return on investment in this stuff. And what I'm interested in talking about is what happens next for us. And so we're launching a business called Framework. And the intent of Framework is to solve two problems. And it's to solve poverty through permanent employment, permanent supportive employment, and two, to solve the labor crisis in distribution centers and warehouses. And so there's a large volume of jobs that we're trying to get people prepared for. And what I'm really confident about, and this is the transparent part, I'm really confident about our ability to create the workforce. I know we'll have an asset with potentially hundreds of people that are ready and eligible and prepared for work. What I'm less confident about still is the model at which we monetize that workforce so that we can sustain our business. And so here are a couple of our considerations right now. And there's two models, and one is what's an outsourced model, and the second is what's called an in-source service model. And so from an outsource, a company would send us a job. They would send us raw materials and a job function, and we would send them back a finished product. We would have all of our workforce right there in our own facility. The bigger opportunity, however, is to provide our workforce to companies that need to supplement their external recruiting efforts from HR. And so what we're looking to do is we send the workforce, including supervision, accountability, etc., and they're providing us the job function and the capacity. And so this is where we're at now. We're consistently kind of reevaluating this to figure out what happens next. But the part we are confident about is the way we incorporate that dignity, accountability, and resources into a job model. And so it starts at the very beginning. Our associates will go through a really heavy screen, kind of a devious interview process to flesh out their capacity to be successful and their willingness. And with those kind of things in place, we put them in through this tiered model. It's a fellowship of sorts, where our employees, in a really kind of progressive model, get tiered responsibility as they continue to take on more and more work and more responsibility to their peers to keep them accountable, to work through. The model this is engineered off of is what's called a therapeutic community, which is a warm, fuzzy, social worky kind of term for the model that happened behind Alcoholics Anonymous or any of the Narcotics Anonymous or anything, where you have a group of people with a shared experience that best hold each other accountable because of their credibility in that space. And so one thing we know is that really effective behavior and employment behaviors and attributes aren't learned immediately. So we would call these our tenets. And so our ultimate goal is to have people with key values and considerations that will make them successful in the work environment. But it doesn't start there. It starts at the very beginning, where we focus a lot of our energy and training efforts and job responsibilities around task-oriented behavior. So think of the way you learned and your guardian or your parent taught you. They didn't sit you down and say, I'm going to talk to you about honesty. They sat you down and you learned about not telling the lie about finishing your vegetables, or whatever it was, and those progressively grow. And so those are tasks. Traits are patterns of behavior. We'll reward those patterns with higher wages, responsibilities, etc. And tenets are for our folks that are really prepared to move on. And so we're at a good point right now. And as we continue to flesh this out, the things we're looking for are expertise. There's clearly gaps that we're working on, and we're looking for experts in the industry that we're pursuing. We're looking for experts in measurement and evaluation, and a ton of experts in human resources. The second thing we're doing is we're mobilizing all of our resources. And so we've got all of these different opportunities out to find early stage money and resources to pursue this, and we're evaluating those. And the most important thing that I'd ask people to do to help mobilize around this effort is to help us find partners. And partners of all kinds. We need to find communities that are good places for us to start recruiting employees from. We need to find customers that are feeling this economic pain that we can leverage. And we need to find stakeholders in general to keep telling this story and selling it. I'm excited, however, because at this point we've got a room full of people that are all motivated around these things. And so I know these problems can be solved easily and readily. And I'm excited to participate and hope I can get many people engaged in the process. And so thanks so much for having me. I'm going to send it over to the next person.